Hello my friend, welcome to my channel Faisal Azib. I hope that you are well. So, in previous video we talked about type conversion and coercion to numbers and to strength, but I didn't mention Boolean yet, right? That's because we need to learn the concept of Truthy and Falsy values first. And so that's what we are gonna do now. So let's get right into it. So falsy values are values that are not exactly false, but will become false when we try to convert them into a Boolean. And in JavaScript, there are only 5 falsy values. And let me actually write them down here for you. So we have 5 falsy values, and what is these values? They are 0, the empty string, undefined, null, and not a number. Okay, and that's it. Of course, false itself is already false, so we don't need to include it in the list of falsy values. Okay? So again, all of these 5 values will be converted to false when we attempt to convert them to a Boolean. So they are not exactly false initially, but they will become when converted to a Boolean. So that's the definition of falsy values. Everything else are also called truthy values. Okay, I repeat, everything else are also called truthy values. So values that will be converted to true, for example, in a number that is not 0, or in a string that is not an empty string, will be converted to true when we attempt to convert them to a Boolean. And so let's actually see that in practice. So just like with numbers and strings, we can use a Boolean now function. Console.log. Now I will use Boolean function. Okay, like this. And we put the value that we need to convert to Boolean. For example, we start with 0. Okay? And we know that this one is falsy values, right? So let's see it. It is false. Good. So let's copy this line 4 times because we need to see another case. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or no more. I don't know. Let's see. So let's do the same thing with undefined, for example, to see what we got. Undefined. I will do also with a string that is not empty. For example, I write Faisal like this. And now let's also do this with an empty object. Okay? And we will learn about object in the next section, inshallah. So this is here is simply an empty object. So let's see the result. What's gonna be? So just come on this one, and here we have false, false, true, and true. Okay, so converting 0 here to a Boolean resulted in false, and the same for undefined. It is false, also false, but then the string Faisal is true, and so that why we say that any string that is not an empty string is truthy value, and the same actually applies to this empty object. Okay, it's also a truthy values, but if we try to convert an empty string like this, well, I think then you can already know what the result will be, and it's gonna be false, of course. Okay, and because it is falsy values, as we see up here in this list. Okay, so that's a truthy and falsy value here. And this is how we could convert them to booleans. But in practice, I actually never did this in my life. I never used this function here in practice. This was just to show you the concept of truthy and falsy values. So in practice, the conversion to boolean is always implicit, not explicit, or in other words, is always type coercion that JavaScript does automatically behind the scenes. But when exactly does JavaScript do type coercion to boolean? Well, it happens in two scenarios. The first one, when using logical operators, and second, in logical context, like for example in the condition of if-else statement that we have done before. Okay? And we are going to talk about logical operator in a future video, inshallah. So let's now go back to the if-else statement and see how type coercion works in the if-else condition. So let's say that we have a money variable. Okay, money. And in the beginning we don't have any value. So I don't have any money. We have 0. Okay, I hope that is not the case for no one for us. So we set it to 0 here, and now we can use what we just learned to test if the person has currently any money or not, right? So let me actually write it first, and then I'm going to explain to you how it works. Okay, so if money, then let's log in the console something like don't spend it at all. Okay, so console dot log don't spend it at all. Okay, and notice now I use the double quote because in here I have single quote. Okay, for the don't, and then we can also do an else block, for example, else block. So for the case that the person does not have any money, then I can just say go to work, for example, or anything else. For example, you should find a job or get a job, as you want. Find a job. Okay, so let's see if this works. I'm going to explain to you why it works. So I will load the page, and here I have you should find a job. And so that's the else part. Okay, so this here is the code that's gonna be executed. Okay, but why? That's the question. Well, we know that money is a number right now, and this number is 0. But in the logical context of an if-else statement condition, so that's right here. In this parenthesis here, JavaScript will try to coerce any value into a boolean, and that happens using the truthy and falsy values rules that we just discussed in the beginning. So we know that money here is 0, but 0 is falsy values, right? And so in this logical environment here, in this condition, oops, sorry, I removed the condition. This number 0 will be converted to false, just like it happened here when we converted manually 0 to a boolean, right? So here, this conversion to boolean return false, or this one, it is the same thing. And here, the exact same thing happens. Money is 0, and so 0 is converted to false because it is a falsy value. And as a result, the else block here is executed, and so on the console we see you should find a job. Now, if we change this variable or the money to something else, and it doesn't matter the value, for example 100, it is just a number, let's say 100, then 100 is Truthy value, and so this means that this condition will be true, and so the if block will be here executed. Let's see this. So I will reload. Indeed, don't spend it at all. Okay, great. I hope that made sense, and we can test this another situation to make really sure that you understand it. So another use case for these Truthy and Falsy values is to check if a variable is actually defined or not. And this might seem like a weird use case, but you will see later in the course that it actually makes a lot of sense sometimes to test if something actually exists or not. So let's define a variable here, for example let height, but I let it like this. Okay, so now I will just test if the height like this. Okay, then if it is not the case, run this code. For example log console.log good, for example just an example, height is defined. Okay, but if not, so else, then just say height here is undefined. So height, and here I will just make same thing, height is undefined. Okay, something like this. So let's see the result. And here, as you can see, again, I got height is undefined, and I will explain you why it works this way, and maybe you can already guess why it works this way. So, can you try to explain it to yourself? Maybe. That will be a good idea to make sure you actually got the concept. Okay, if you understand it, it's very clear for you. But anyway, we know that height is undefined in this moment, right? Okay, because we didn't assign it any value yet, and we know from our little list here that of course that undefined is falsy value, and therefore, just like before in the money here, this height value variable here in this logical context will automatically will be converted to a boolean, and since height is undefined, so this one is falsy value. Okay, therefore this block here will be executed. But not now if you assign something to a high, for example, as before, 100. Okay, no matter what is it, then we will get the other result. So now this one is true, and so now this block here will be executed, and we can see this. Good, height is defined. Okay, however, with this we can actually run into a problem. So let's say that the height is 0 for a reason. Okay, and that's perfectly valid number. 0 is valid number. But watch what happens when we run the code. We got good, height is undefined. Why is that? And to help you know the answer by now, well, it's because 0 is also a falsy value. And so this one will also trigger this else block. But in this case, that's actually not what we want. Okay? So this is a kind of a bug. It's an error in our application because here in this if-else statement, we didn't account for this scenario. We only accounted for the scenario that the height is either defined or not. But we didn't think of the height being 0, right? And so right now we get height undefined, even though that's not true for the case 0. So this is just to illustrate an example that that there can be problem using this approach. However, we can fix this using logical operators, which is gonna be very interesting, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the section. But first, in the next video, inshallah, we need to talk about equality operators. So stay with us and understand very well this concept of falsy values and truthy. And we'll see you in the next video, inshallah, to talk about equality operators. Take care of us, brothers and sisters. Subscribe to my channel, Faisal Azib, and follow me on Instagram, teams.winners and faisal.chico. Telegram, Real Practice and Char, in Twitter's Teams Winners. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.